a young analyst discovers that some numbers hide more than mere calculations. Amid tempting choices, memories of a mentor, and veiled threats, he will need to decide how far he is willing to go when the truth starts to weigh more than ambition itself. Lucas Rivera adjusted his cheap tie while watching the reflection of the skyscrapers in the mirrors of the Archer Capital elevator. 28 years old, dark hair always trimmed, determined brown eyes that hid his fatigue. Another 14-hour day was beginning. The elevator stopped on the 36th floor. The doors opened, revealing the empire of glass and steel where analysts like him worked tirelessly. "Good morning, Mr. Rivera," greeted the intern distributing coffees. Lucas smiled, remembering when he was the one distributing coffees just 2 years ago. His cubicle, smaller than the others, was in the corner of the floor, with a view of a neighboring building. On his desk, next to the monitor, was a framed photo, an elderly man with gray hair, a gentle smile, and wise eyes. Professor Harris, the man who had changed his life. As Lucas turned on the computer, he allowed himself a moment of nostalgia. The nights at the Bronx Community Library, the smell of old books and cheap coffee, Harris's hoarse voice explaining economic concepts. Numbers speak, Lucas, but only the fair listen. Remember that. His phone rang, bringing him back to reality. "Rivera, I need the quarterly reports revised by noon." His supervisor's impatient voice barely waited for his confirmation before hanging up. Lucas spent the next few hours immersed in spreadsheets. His tiny apartment in Queens, crowded with stacks of economics and financial analysis books, had taught him to live in a small space. This skill translated to his mind, where he managed to organize complex data into comprehensible patterns. By noon, with his eyes burning, Lucas noticed something strange. The spreadsheets of Archer Global Investments, one of the company's most important funds, showed numbers that were too perfect. Rising profits, minimal losses, stable cash flow even during the recent market turbulence. The math worked impeccably, but there was something artificial there. "Not even nature is that perfect," he murmured, recalling Professor Harris's words. Lucas decided to deepen his analysis. In the following hours, while colleagues went out for lunch, he continued working, cross-referencing different reports. He discovered subtle discrepancies, values appearing in one place and disappearing in another, like a game of financial illusion. Hidden transfers to subsidiary accounts, debts masked as investments, artificially inflated assets. His heart raced when he realized that all the changes had a digital signature, VH. Victor Hammond, the legendary CFO of Archer Capital. Hammond, 55, was an icon on Wall Street. Fortune magazine called him the architect of numbers. The Wall Street Journal described him as a financial genius capable of transforming companies on the brink of bankruptcy into profitable giants. To the media, to investors, to everyone, Hammond was untouchable. But Lucas knew another side of this story. 5 years earlier, the small fund where Professor Harris worked was ruined by a predatory maneuver, leaving hundreds of families without their savings. The architect of that operation, Victor Hammond. The scandal was hushed up. Hammond emerged unscathed, but Harris lost everything: his job, his reputation, and eventually his health. The heart collapse came less than a year later, when Harris was teaching community courses, trying to rebuild his life. Lucas felt a lump in his throat as he connected the dots. The same man who had destroyed his mentor was now manipulating Archer's numbers, potentially affecting thousands of investors. That night, he stayed late at the office, copying documents, capturing evidence. By the time he finally got to his apartment in Queens, it was almost midnight. Sitting on the bed, he looked at the photo of Professor Harris. "What would you do?" he asked in a low voice. The answer came in the form of a memory. "Numbers don't lie, Lucas. People lie about numbers." The next morning, when he arrived at the office, a message awaited him. "Mr. Rivera, meeting with Mr. Hammond, 10 a.m., executive conference room." Lucas felt his stomach sink. The conference room on the 42nd floor was unlike anything Lucas knew at the company. Noble wood furniture, panoramic windows revealing Manhattan in all its grandeur, and a silence that seemed to swallow the city's noise. Victor Hammond, impeccable in his tailored suit, perfectly trimmed gray hair, was observing the city like an emperor contemplating his kingdom. When Lucas entered, he turned slowly. "Rivera, right? Have a seat." His voice was deep, controlled, the kind of voice accustomed to commanding rooms full of executives. Lucas sat down, trying to control the trembling in his hands. Hammond slid a dossier across the polished table. "You have been working overtime, reviewing reports beyond what was requested." It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir. I wanted to ensure the accuracy of the numbers." Hammond smiled, a smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. Accuracy. Interesting choice of words. He opened the dossier. Columbia, full scholarship. From the Bronx. Father a mechanic, mother a nurse. First in the family to attend university. Impressive. Lucas remained silent. "Do you know why I called you here?" Hammond finally asked. "I imagine it's about the quarterly reports." Perceptive. Hammond closed the dossier. "I know you're detail-oriented, Rivera. You must have seen things you shouldn't have." Lucas swallowed hard. Hammond continued. "This game is bigger than you imagine. Stay in your place, and you will have a promising career. Your talent hasn't gone unnoticed. We are considering a significant promotion." Hammond paused. "Or perhaps, well, let's just say there are analysts who disappear from the map for much less." The threat, though veiled, was crystal clear. "I'm sure you'll make the right decision. Now, let's get back to work. There's a major investor event next week, and we need everything to be perfect." Lucas left the room feeling hollow inside. In the elevator, his reflection seemed like that of a stranger. Hammond's offer was tempting. A promotion would mean more money, perhaps enough to finally help his parents move to a better neighborhood. It would mean recognition, status, security. But it would also mean betraying everything Professor Harris had taught him. During lunch, sitting alone in a small cafe near the office, Lucas noticed Sarah Miller, a 32-year-old woman from the compliance department, sitting a few tables ahead. Sarah was known for her competence and integrity. Rumors had it that she had reported corrupt practices at her previous job, facing retaliation but standing firm. Gathering courage, Lucas approached her. "Sorry to bother you, Mrs. Miller. Could I have a minute?" Sarah studied him with keen eyes. "Mr. Rivera, right? The young analyst from the 36th floor." Lucas nodded, surprised that she knew him. "Have a seat," she offered. "And it's just Sarah." In the following hours, in a low voice, Lucas recounted what he had discovered. Sarah listened attentively, asking pointed questions, her face maintaining a neutral expression, but her eyes revealing growing concern. "Do you have evidence?" she finally asked, staring at him seriously. Lucas discreetly showed the files he had copied. Sarah quickly examined them, then returned them. "Hammond plays dirty. He has connections everywhere in the government, regulatory agencies, even in the financial press. But if we act alone, we'll be crushed. We need a strategy." During the following weeks, as the investor presentation approached, Lucas and Sarah met regularly. In cafes away from the office, in parks, sometimes late at night in the small office kitchen when almost everyone had already left. Sarah became not just an ally, but a mentor. "Courage is not the absence of fear," she said once, "but the decision to act despite it." Lucas discovered that Sarah had her own history with corporate injustices. Years earlier, she had exposed fraudulent practices at an investment bank, facing not only professional retaliation but also personal threats. The experience had hardened her, but also strengthened her determination. "Why are you helping me?" Lucas asked one night. Sarah contemplated her coffee cup. "Because someone helped me when I was in your place. And because this world needs people who still believe that the truth matters." Together, they developed a plan. Sarah, with her access to the compliance system, managed to create verifiable copies of the original documents before Hammond's manipulations. Lucas, in turn, prepared a detailed analysis showing exactly how the numbers had been distorted. On the eve of the big presentation to investors, Lucas returned to his apartment exhausted. The decision he would make the next day could destroy his career, or worse. Hammond was not a man to make empty threats. Sitting on the edge of the bed, He turned off the lights and held the photo of Professor Harris. The room was silent except for the distant sound of New York traffic, a city that never slept, just like Lucas's conscience that night. "I am not you. I don't have your strength," he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. He then remembered the last words Harris had told him, days before his heart failure. "The truth may be costly, Lucas, but the lie always demands more." Lucas closed his eyes and, for the first time in years, prayed. He didn't ask for victory or recognition, just clarity and strength to do what was right, regardless of the personal cost. In that stillness, an unexpected peace enveloped him. Not the absence of fear, but a certainty that transcended fear. He knew what he needed to do. The Grand Hall of Archer Capital was filled with important investors, financial journalists, and executives. Victor Hammond, impeccable as always, commanded the stage with the confidence of a maestro. His slides displayed impressive numbers, rising graphs, optimistic projections. "As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, Archer has not only weathered the recent market turbulence but thrived," Hammond declared with a confident voice. "Our funds have delivered consistent returns above the market average for the 10th consecutive quarter." Polite applause filled the room. Lucas, sitting among the junior analysts in the back rows, felt his heart pounding in his chest. Sarah, on the other side of the hall, gave him an almost imperceptible nod. It was now or never. "Any questions before we conclude?" Hammond asked, smiling at the audience. Lucas stood up, tablet in hand. "Sorry, Mr. Hammond." His voice echoed from the microphone that Sarah had strategically placed near him. "But the real numbers tell a different story." A murmur of surprise ran through the hall. Hammond, momentarily dazed, quickly recovered. "Mr. Rivera, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but this is not the time to." Before he could finish, Lucas's slides replaced Hammond's on the main screen, courtesy of Sarah, who had secured access to the presentation system. "These are the original numbers before the manipulations," Lucas explained, his voice steadier now. "And these are the numbers after the changes made by Mr. Hammond." The two sets of data side by side told a devastating story of systematic fraud. Lucas continued, explaining each discrepancy with the clarity of someone who had spent weeks analyzing every detail. "The Archer Global Investments Fund is not thriving. It's rapidly losing money due to high-risk investments that were concealed from investors. The transfers to offshore subsidiaries were not declared as required by law." Hammond, livid with anger, stormed across the stage. "This is defamation. This junior employee clearly does not understand the complexity of our operations." But the room was already in turmoil. Journalists were typing furiously on their devices. Investors demanded explanations. Sarah, who had discreetly approached the stage, activated her own microphone. "As the Deputy Director of Compliance, I confirm that these documents have been verified and authenticated. Copies have been simultaneously sent to the second Archer's Board of Directors." The chairman of the board, a normally impassive man, stood up. "This meeting is adjourned. Mr. Hammond, please accompany me immediately." "Ladies and gentlemen, Archer Capital commits to thoroughly investigating these allegations." The following hours passed in a blur. Lucas was interrogated by senior executives, company lawyers, and even two SEC investigators who appeared surprisingly quickly. By the end of the day, Hammond was suspended from his duties pending investigation, and Lucas feared for his own job and for his safety. When he finally left the building, it was already night. Sarah was waiting for him on the sidewalk. "Are you okay?" she asked. Lucas shook his head, uncertain of the answer. "What happens now?" "Now the hard part begins. There will be investigations, possible legal proceedings. Hammond has many allies. Do you think I did the right thing?" Sarah smiled for the first time that day. "I'm absolutely sure." As they walked down the busy street, Lucas's phone rang. An unknown number. "Mr. Rivera? This is Elena Vasquez from the Harris Foundation for Financial Ethics." Lucas stopped, stunned. "Harris Foundation?" "Yes, an organization established in memory of Professor James Harris to support integrity in financial markets. We heard about what happened today. We would like to offer legal support and protection, if needed. Tears welled up in Lucas's eyes. He had never known such a foundation existed. How? How did you find out about me? Professor Harris kept a diary where he mentioned his promising students. Your name appeared frequently. He believed that you would make a difference someday. 3 months later, the official investigation confirmed all of Lucas's allegations. Hammond faced multiple criminal charges. Archer Capital, under new leadership, implemented significant reforms in its compliance procedures. Lucas, promoted to senior analyst with internal audit responsibilities, still lived in the same apartment in Queens. He could have moved to a better place, but he chose to use part of his new salary to help his parents and make donations to educational programs in the Bronx. One Sunday afternoon, he visited the community library where he used to study with Professor Harris. On the Community Heroes board, there was now a photo of Harris, recognized posthumously for his educational work. Lucas placed a simple bouquet of flowers under the photo. I did it, Professor, he whispered. But not for me. For the truth. Outside, the cold Manhattan wind blew between the buildings, but Lucas felt a different warmth inside him. The certainty that true wealth was not in bonuses or promotions, but in character, justice, and the courage to stand up for what is right, even when everyone else only sees the numbers.